This is the Dark Conspiracy or the add-on Comic Conspiracy in addition to Ryan's two-parter Year's End podcast. I don't know what week he's going to post this on, so I won't say what week this is. It'll be after Christmas, maybe before New Year's or after New Year's. I have no idea. But here we are. My name is Toby. I have
Charlie.
And also...
And Bryce.
With me. All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Did you guys have a nice Christmas? Which already has happened, I believe.
Maybe.
Oh.
Depending on when this gets posted.
Yeah.
It was glorious.
Well, because...
bells were jingling.
Excellent. Well, by the time Ryan posts this, it might be Christmas next year. So we're really in the future at this point.
That's true.
Yeah.
In a weird way, that seems likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to be chatting with you, handsome gentlemen, again. And it's been a little while, but I'm excited to talk some year end. It's been quite an exciting year. We had some big movies come out, bigger than most years, I dare say. We had some very epic comic events, not as epic, but still epic, as you might say. And with regards to TV shows, I've got some things to say, as I'm sure Charlie does, but it was not, I think, your typical year for comic book TV shows.
Well, we'll get there. Let's start with comic books first.
Or maybe I just don't know.
Let's start with comic books first. Ryan kind of did like a loose top three, or we can do like a soft top three, and then kind of like what we liked over the last 10 years.
Well, everything about Toby,
everything about me is excellent.
Right, but everything about Higgins is loose. So yeah, fair play.
Charlie, what's your favorite book of the year?
So my favorite book of the year is probably the Tom King Batman, but I have to preface this just because I was thinking about this, and in terms of what I've read this year, I feel like all I've read are like big staple books. It's all like Batman or Justice League or Superman, or X-Men. Like I've been following more like the big shifts on, Tom King's been on Batman for long enough. That's not really a big shift, but like Snyder's Justice League has been a big shift, and Bendis taking over Superman has been a big shift, and X-Men with Hickman has been a big shift. Yeah. So I feel like...
So you've only been reading the blockbusters.
That's what it feels like.
It's better than me. I haven't been reading Squad all year.
And I may have read like a few things here and there that wouldn't necessarily be considered the blockbusters, but I don't feel like I've reached the sort of different ends of the spectrum that I normally read. Like, I don't remember the last time I really sat down and read like a indie book.
You're normally much better than this, Charlie. Get your shit together.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's sort of depressing.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go into a rant about Kid Cable, I guess we did. I'm sorry, I didn't let Charlie finish his list, but I'm going to interrupt you, Charlie, because I want to hear the rest of your list. But before you mention how much you love Hawks and Pox, my favorite book, because I don't have a long list, I have to make sure I get it in before you spout off about how much you love it.
Trying to steal the thunder.
House of X, Powers of 10, my favorite book of the year. I just want to say that before you say that it's your second favorite book of the year.
So,
are you trying to solidify? You're trying to hit a new running for Cable #1 fan there in the future?
No, I'm fucking ready to talk about Kid Cable, but let's finish off Charlie's list.
Yeah.
So I would probably go with Batman. I have really been enjoying what Bendis has been doing with Superman, more on the action side than the Superman side.
How do you feel about the identity reveal?
It's weird. I kind of feel like it feels like it's the cycle that always goes on. This isn't the first time they have done the reveal. It won't be the last time they do the reveal. It's not
right. Yeah.
It kind of, for me, when it comes to comic books, there's no big jaw drop about it. It's just, this is the direction it's going right now. Now, mind you, with Superman sort of standing for truth, justice, and the American way and that kind of thing, I kind of don't mind him stepping out and just standing for truth.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that at all, but I do specifically want to talk House of X and Powers of 10 with you, just because, especially going into the X-Men books as they are right now.
Yeah.
I don't really understand the hook. Like, if you ask me what's going on in X-Men right now, I'm not sure I could tell you in any such way that would get people excited.
So Charlie, let's dive in.
Yeah. It's been funny because the hardcover came out, and Ryan's like, "You buying one?" And I'm like, "It looks mighty nice." And I always kind of look over at Charlie. So do I have your okay yet? Can I buy this book yet? And he goes, I'm not so sure yet because and he tells me a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, all right, but everything I hear about the X-Men, I'm not sure I'm going to dig this book. So I'm really curious. You love this book.
I'm very curious to hear your take specifically on X-Men, just because for me, I can't say that anything has really happened in the first few issues of X-Men or
Marauders unleash the Bryce on it. We're going to unleash the Bryce on it.
Yes.
So there's no Bryce to unleash, but I appreciate you saying that. So I was having heart palpitations, metaphorically and emotionally, not physically, about this end of year podcast, because my easy go-to loves of my life are obviously X-Men first and foremost.
Not your wife.
And then Batman. Well, yeah, wife and kids can't be bothered. And so I was like, all right, well, obviously my top number one is going to be House of X, Powers of 10, because it wasn't Rosenberg's run. Respect, God bless him, and good work filling in like a Premier League manager, filling in before they find a substitute for Unai Emery. After a while, I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, look, Hickman is as confusing to me as Morrison. And I read X-Men number 1 and 2 and New Mutants 1 and 2, which are the ones that he's writing. And I said it in the last podcast I was on, I love that he's a showrunner. I love that they have a cohesive idea behind the whole plan. But fuck if I know what the fuck is happening. And I read X-Men 1 and 2 especially because, New Mutants not as exciting. But, so X-Men number 1 is supposed to be, the flagship. And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? And, it is such a departure from the norm. And I really respect and really love that they went and took such a bold direction. And they seem to have a really smart person, show running. And, he's got his Gundam loving friend. Is Lionel Francis or Francis Lionel? I don't remember. Doing all the drawings of all of his Gundam anime stuff. And I don't understand what is happening with the X-Men. And I would love to say, oh, it's this grand scheme. But I feel like with Hickman books, you look at it afterwards and you're like, oh, that was a beautiful tapestry that he painted. But each issue in and of itself, I'm just like, what the fuck? Issues 1 and 2 of X-Men, I was like, this is nothing I've ever read of X-Men. If I picked those books up without the history of the X-Men and without reading Hawks and Pox, I would be like, and this is embarrassing and painful is a little hyperbolic, but almost painful to say, I would put those books back and not come back because I love the X-Men, but I'm like, what is this? What is this stuff?
Yeah.
So
I don't,
go ahead.
I don't feel like I understand the hook in these books right now, which is odd because this is what I specifically told Toby on the hardcover. I'm like, until I understand the story he's crafting, I don't know if Hawks and Pox's hardcover would just be some random hardcover on my shelf that doesn't hold any value to me, or if it's going to be the start of something epic that I absolutely need in my collection. I don't have the hook yet.
Yeah, no hook. So what I would say, the way I was thinking about it was that, so Hawks and Pox would make I think a possibly best ever if the X-Men series were to end in totality and be done forever. And that was the last X-Men story ever told. And then it was sort of just these were the lives of Moira Taggart and all these X-Men stories happened in this time. And, the little cliffhangers with, now the X-Men are gods and they're doing their own thing. And, if they were to sort of mic drop, leave the X-Men and just leave it alone forever, then I would kind of be like, all right, that's sort of a badass mic drop moment to leave the X-Men alone. But to have Hawks and Pox be such a, by the way, for new listeners,
launching point.
Hawks is HOX, House of X, and Pox is Powers of X or Powers of 10, which is those were the books, House of X and Powers of 10. I don't know how many new listeners we have, but anyway, so Hawks and Pox
have negative listeners.
Possibly. So, I just, it is hard to say, like, when you go into a series with them being these unstoppable gods with no, like, sort of caveat, because they've sort of solved everything. And I understand that there's going to be, you know, some twists and turns, and Hickman's great about, you know, providing compelling story going forward, but I don't know what it is now. I couldn't tell you. And the first 2 issues of X-Men, not to mention New Mutants, haven't led me to believe that there's anything necessarily compelling other than my historic and perennial love for the X-Men and the X-Universe.
Now, so you haven't even mentioned, is it Excalibur, I believe, that has Rogue and Gambit in it? I think it's Excalibur, right?
I can tell you in just 2 seconds.
Don't recall
that it is Excalibur,
and no one's
Excalibur
talking about
#1, written by Teenie Howard.
In fact, I think everybody's hating on that book. Have you read it yet?
So everything other than the Hickman books, I'm just going to get on trades.
Okay.
Or if they're repellent, maybe I will happen to miss them.
Yeah. So
that's a first.
I will say this. In the X-Men #1 and 2, they've had scenes in them, both of them, that killed me to my core with Kid Cable.
Oh, dude, how awful! Yeah, dude. All right, can we go there now?
All right. For new listeners, as in me, how did this little fucker come about?
So how did Kid Cable come about?
Yeah.
So in the book, what was the name of the story? It wasn't Extermination. What was it? Extinction. There was an X in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, while Charlie, goddamn it, Charlie, is googling the name of the story.
He totally is.
Yeah. Kid Cable came back from the future
and killed the real Cable, right?
When the Kid X-Men were still around.
Yeah.
And killed Awesome Cable or Real Cable or the only Cable, whatever you want to call him.
The ones you guys are fans of. #1 and #2.
Well, the only real one.
Yeah.
And he sort of took over as Cable, and the idea is that he's this new millennial version of Cable.
Yeah, it was Extermination.
Okay, good job, Bryce. He said through gritted teeth because I wasn't sure. He's awful. Kid Cable is awful. He's basically this millennial revamp of Cable, and he's got all the quirks and quips of a millennial. Not that millennials are bad. Love millennials.
I would say part of my core hatred for the character is I feel like they glossed over the fact that he killed the Cable that's been around all this time and kind of replaced him. Like during the event, it was this big deal and like everybody was chasing after him. But like the second you came out of that event and he sort of stuck around, I don't really feel like they've ever really dealt with the fact that he came back and killed Cable. It's more like, oh yeah, move in with mom and dad and party with the other X-Men and
So to that point and more, my pain point is twofold. First of all, but I feel like that is sort of because this Hickman reboot, whatever you want to call it, like sort of happened very quickly thereafter. I mean, what was it? Was it a year? I mean, in comic terms, that's not a long time because they were gone because of Age of X-Man for so long that in 616 canon, as we were used to it, Kid Cable had like no time to process. Not to mention the fact that I completely agree with you about how like he had this like one of the most beloved X characters, and to you and me, Charlie, and obviously #1 most beloved X characters ever, and he kills him, and they're sort of like, oh, you know, that cheeky guy, like isn't that so silly? And then Age of X-Man comes, and then the Hawks and Pox stuff comes, and then he's just sort of integrated into this like new X-Men universe, and it's like we're just supposed to be okay with the fact that he's around, and fuck if he doesn't have the worst like Bendis like lines about just like when he's fawning over the Starjammers. Was it not Raza? It was Raza. Raza's gun, and he's just like super militant, but also an idiot because he's a time traveler, and he's like Deadpool. which is, at least half ironic in his not breaking the fourth wall, but in his self buffoonery.
Well, for me, a large part of my hatred for it also has to do with the way that he's interacting with characters like Scott and Jean, and
exactly.
Every single scene I've seen him in is filled with the like, Mom, can I trade guns with so and so?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Makes me want to strangle him.
That sounds really weird.
Like whenever he's referencing, and I think that most of our complaints, I mean, like I certainly have complaints from that X-Force series because that X-Force series can GFY 100%. But like, I guess we're not supposed to like consider that necessarily because it all started over with the Hickman stuff. So it's like, okay, can we call him on his bullshit for being a lame character before the Hickman reboot, and then with the Hickman reboot, he's still super lame. He's like, Dad, this summoner stole my thermal grenade, even though he gave it to him. But it's just like he's this petulant child, which is not Cable at all.
Not at all.
And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And it drives me so crazy because I understand they're trying to make him this charming, cheeky, because he has the history of being a badass. Now he's kind of like Damian a little bit, Damian Wayne. Like he's like a little bit cheeky, a little bit sarcastic. I mean, there's obvious big differences. Oh my God, my daughter's at the door. Okay, can you guys keep talking? Go to bed. How do I mute this?
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I don't know. Just the way they've handled that character reminds me a lot of what they did with Emo Lobo that was around for like a year, and then they went back to the original Lobo. I have an intense hatred. So when they announced like the new series coming out and everyone's like, how excited for you are this? I'm like, oh, I wouldn't call it excitement.
What, is there a new Cable book coming out?
Yes, there's a new solo Cable book with the young Cable coming out, which if I'm not mistaken is the team that was behind a like Deadpool reboot not too long ago.
Okay. Well, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Gray, X-Man?
Yeah.
Or Young Cable?
Oh, I'll go. I have no problem with X-Man. I've always liked X-Man.
Yeah, me
because
too.
It came out of coming out of Age of Apocalypse and stuff.
Sure.
I
actually liked X-Men. Yeah. He somewhat reminds me of X-Men, but seems like a lot worse of a version of it.
It's definitely a lot worse. And X-Men came with all this sort of trauma and stuff from his experiences. And I'm not going to say that they didn't have some missteps with X-Men as a character, but even like their missteps with him as a character were interesting. Like they were playing around with the idea of having a character who's that powerful that even he could mistake the fact that he's not a god, but feels like one at times and that kind of stuff. So like X-Men, I never had a problem with.
Yeah.
In fact,
and he was different enough
when they
Cable.
Brought him around and Cable was still around, they had some great crossovers between the two characters because they treated them like
separate
brothers.
Entities. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, frenemies, brothers, total enemies, depending on the crossover. Yeah. Absolutely. He was a great character. I totally agree. My problem, one of my many problems with the Kid Cable is that he's just like a replacement. And it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, Nate Gray, X-Man, was a foil.
Yeah.
Even with this terrible, like, Age of X-Man that we just had, in my opinion, was not the best. It was like, okay, well, he at least has his own personality. He's like this hippie messiah. Was it Warren Ellis? What was that thing that they did? It was in, like, 2000 when they had the whole revamp. They revamped, like, the four main X books at the time.
Cable became Soldier X.
Yes. Yeah. And they gave Nate Gray the tattoo or whatever, and he was like a shaman hippie messiah guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, they made him like a separate character. He's from the Age of Apocalypse. It was all this stuff. And I just feel like the X-Men were losing steam in the past half decade. And so they just we're like, you know what we could do is we can make a young Cable, replace him entirely. And not only will we have a hip new version of Cable, but we can also bring old Cable back when it suits us down the line, which is so frustrating.
So I'm behind on some of the stuff with Kid Cable in it. One of the things that sort of frustrates me is they've never fully the way I look at Kid Cable is Cable managed to change the timeline enough that there was a different version of him that kind of came back and shifted stuff. But I don't feel like they've ever really dealt very well with what that shift in the timeline looked like.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that like I feel like they had like X-Men sales were plummeting and they needed like to shake it up, but this Hickman thing like wasn't fully baked yet. Like we need more behind the scenes editorial like understanding. But what I have to believe anecdotally, which could be totally wrong, but I'm never wrong, so there's that, is that like they needed to mix things up, and they were like, you know what always is good is a reboot on like a very famous character. And then and they're like, look, it worked really well with X-Man. Like he's an ongoing character, or it didn't receive very vitriolic reaction when Nate Gray came out. Let's do this with X-Man. But I feel like Extermination was such a half-baked, like it wasn't like a timeless classic plot or story by like the most extreme measures. So I feel like we're sort of stuck with Kid Cable now, because by the time he was sort of ingrained in the X-Men community, Hickman was like, all right, well, I'm fucking hitting the reset button, and this is the Cable that we have now. So
as much negativity as I've probably brought to the Hickman X-Men that I don't necessarily mean to, I will say this. It's been a long time since people have been talking about X-Men this much.
Like on the forum or as in our Facebook group, the Hawks and Pox was like up there.
Like for me, I am more enjoying the conversations coming out of the new Hickman books than I'm actually enjoying the Hickman books, because the conversations are great.
I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, when you get Hickman like in charge of a cohesive story, when you get somebody who knows their shit and like they get their shit together and they plan like a roadmapped plan, he seems to have some sort of roadmap and some sort of idea of what he's going to do in terms of like a 5-year plan or whatever it is. And so that's great. And I really believe that if they had like I keep using the word showrunner, and I don't mean to overuse it, but it's all I can think of. If they had one like a half decade ago that had a 5-year plan, that Kid Cable would not exist, because they would be like, we're just going to ride it out, and then Hickman's going to take over. And I don't know enough to throw Marvel editorial under the bus or the X-Men editorial under the bus, but I mean, I honestly believe that Hickman had this plan. And his plan, by the way, works just as well with regular Cable, aka real Cable, aka Cable is better than California.
I'll be the first one to admit some of those early covers of like the new X books looked like it had the older Cable on them in some of like the big group shots. I'm like,
wait, so you would have had old Cable living with Jean Grey and Scott? Hey, Mom and Dad, can I go borrow this gun?
I'm guessing it's actually supposed to be the younger Cable, but whatever artist they were going with probably wasn't really familiar with the design.
Exactly. Because think about it, like so much of the book, if it's like the artist drawing a young Cable or old Cable, it's only a slight tweak to the writing to make it old Cable versus young Cable. I mean, you take out some of the ridiculous language that he uses about complaining to Mom or asking Mom for whatever, and you just have him say something more badass, which is like Cable. And then all of a sudden it's regular Cable. So it is super annoying. I don't mean to have this whole podcast be about how much we hate Kid Cable, but
that will be a bonus podcast so down the road.
We have full podcasts on how much you guys love Cable, and we just need someone to like tune in halfway, which never happens. But halfway, like, wait, what happened to Charlie and Bryce? They're both hating Cable right now. What is going on?
Well, that's why we're careful to always say
young
Kid Cable.
Yeah, hashtag not my Cable.
Yeah. Well, how about another book there that you like this year, Bryce?
I want to go on a rant at some point in time about Tom King's Batman, but I'm not sure if now is the right time or later.
I think because I believe that's on your list too,
right? It's on my list.
Okay, so I don't mean to shit on 2019 because, we had the Hawks and Pox. I think that was ultimately very good. I think Tom King on Batman is like two like stars colliding in a good way. I don't know what that is, but I love abstractly Tom King and Batman. His run has been phenomenal. I'm trying to like put the words together that I honestly feel, and this answers one of the, I forget if it was a Twitter or Facebook question. Somebody asked for like a real life reaction to Tom King's Batman. I'm so conflicted because I absolutely, like, in my opinion, there's no better writer other than, like, you know, Morrison and Hickman. I sort of put in the same group, and I put them to the side because they're like weird, and you have to like see the whole tapestry after it's done before you appreciate like the pieces. I think Tom King, every piece that you get, you appreciate. You're like, oh, every comic that I read of Tom King's Batman, you know, I'm just like, fuck, man, this guy is like pulling all my heartstrings. This guy is like got a great style, a great method, a great tempo, and I'm absolutely loving. I mean, I'm a major, and I wasn't before Tom King started writing, a major Catwoman and Batman shipper, I think is the right way to say that. And then, you know, he had the whole fake out with issue 50. I don't know if you want to call it a fake out, but like, I absolutely love that. And they've been building up since then. But man, to go through a year of City of Bane where I feel like, you know, nothing really has happened, I'm kind of like, okay, I love the slow boil that he did in the first 50 issues of like the slow build up of Bane being more and more like behind the scenes and in charge of things. And I know it's not done, and I know it's also Thomas Wayne, but I just feel like so many issues, like people shat on Brian Michael Bendis when he was with Marvel for all of the issues that they have, which were just like talking heads. You know, there was either no or little action, and it was just him having two characters talk. Like, there were a lot of issues that I feel were just this very excellent. So I'm, you know, not shitting on the writing, but like the wordplay was like the whole comic, and the wordplay is second to none. So what I'm conflicted with is I absolutely love it, but I feel like like I'm not shitting on it, but I feel like more could be done. And I'm not sure if that's because I thought that his Mr. Miracle was so like bizarre and awesome that like I'm not frankly probably smart enough to understand what he's even doing with Mr. Miracle. And his vision was like so dark and just you guys have seen the TV show The Americans, like just so dark and I guess I appreciated it in its bizarre generic format. I'm at a loss for words other than to say I feel like Charlie, I need you to bail me out here.
So I understand what you're saying, especially because after the wedding there was a lot of not that impactful stories going on with Batman. Like they kind of had the fallout, and then they kind of had the story where Batman was dealing through basically not alternate realities, but dreams and that kind of stuff. And then it comes out of it, and you're finally back to sort of the interaction with his father and the return of Catwoman. And I don't necessarily feel like City of Bane has dragged on as much as it sounds like you do, but part of that is with the double shipping. It may be basically 12 issues or 10 issues, but it's actually going over 5 months or whatnot. But in a weird way, I do agree with you that it feels like City of Bane has two different stories that are going on at the same time. So each story feels like it's taken a lot longer to get resolution around. Like I feel like everything with Bane and the way that they've sort of built up Bane in their intersects with the way they've built up Thomas Wayne. But they both feel like they're doing different things because they have different agendas.
Okay, that helps me get more momentum. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'm going to rely on you in just 30 seconds again. But like one of my additional problems now that I'm finding more words for it is that like he and I'm not sure if it's an annoyance or what it is, but he builds up Batman to be this invincible motherfucker that like no matter what you have planned, Batman's got it figured out and you're fucked. Like there's nothing that you can do about it. And then he's like, oh, but by the way, there's also Bane, and he's also this invincible motherfucker. And so won't it be crazy when they go head to head? And then he's like, well, it doesn't matter because Batman is way more invincible. It's, you know, he's going to go. And that whole fucking like walking 200 miles in the Siberian tundra to go fight KG Beast and then walk back out was like, okay. And then he's like, okay, well, Batman is, by the way, have I mentioned recently how fucking invincible and awesome Batman is? And then he's like, oh, and by the way, have we introduced Thomas Wayne, who is not only like invincible, but he's more badass than each of these two motherfuckers. And then it's like, well, what the fuck, Tom King? Like, which one of these is the invincible motherfucker? Because you have them all fighting each other. And by the way, getting dropped into City of Bane was a little jarring, and it's fine. And I don't.
It's funny if you didn't name any names, it would have sounded like you were recapping a Dragon Ball episode.
I mean, maybe Tom King loves Dragon Ball. I'm not sure. I'm not the biggest Dragon Ball aficionado, but I believe you. But I guess what my thing is that it's like, okay, Tom King, I know that like there's all Batman's invincible, but like Thomas Wayne's invincible and Bane's invincible, and like every issue it seems to alter like who has done like more legwork and who has suffered more and who has had the harder life that's going to be really deserving of this. And the shipping of Catwoman and Batman, like, I love it, and it's still going on, and so that's great. But I don't know.
So here's what I would say about Tom King, and you've actually helped me solidify this in my mind. I love Tom King on books, but I swear my favorite, like a lot of other writers, my favorite issue are the big epic battle issues or the big epic starting of a story issues. Sure. Tom King's, my favorite issues were the like letter from Alfred or like
every one of his annuals, dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like all the ones that are a bit slower and more kind of emotional at their core where there's not actually a lot going on are by far the best issues he writes.
100%. Totally agree. Self-contained Tom King emotional, thoughtful issues of comics are amazing. And I love his, I mean, I've already said it a million times and I'll say it a million more. His Batwoman, Catwoman stuff, like that's a fucking love story that I can get behind. I love what he's doing with Batman and Catwoman.
Yeah.
Like, cause I was never necessarily a shipper. Again, I really hope that I'm using this right. So please save your emails if I'm not, but like for like the past decades, like I was never, there you go. And so, yeah, I mean, I absolutely love what he's done, and it broke my heart, which is supposed to with good writing, when they like quasi broke up at the end of the quote unquote wedding issue of 50. Like I love what he's doing. I just, and I'm not shitting on it. I'm just like, I want kind of like what you're saying a little bit. Like I want his bombastic stories to match the power emotionally of his emotional stories. Yeah. Which is, apples and oranges. So I shouldn't expect that of him, but he's such a good writer. I do. And I'm not being derisive. I don't mean to be at all. Cause he is such a good writer that I just hold him to a different level.
No. And I mean, the reason why a lot of this sort of struck a chord with me as you were talking about this is, when you start talking about like the Batman Catwoman relationship, I immediately go to like Double Date and those like single contained stories that just sort of represent that relationship so well.
Yeah.
And even like the wedding was sort of a slow, emotional, like there wasn't any big battle or anything like that. It was just all about that relationship, and it was great.
Yeah.
But that also is what made like the Fallout kind of interesting, because it tried to go back to a little bit bombastic, but at the same time it tried to slow things down and show that like he's trying to deal with the trauma he just suffered. And like when you kind of put some of that stuff in that lens, again, it makes it a good, strong story to look back on. I do agree that when you get to this story though, which is like the big payoff,
exactly,
it kind of flips issue to issue. One issue will be like amazing, great emotional payoff, like the Alfred letter, and then the next issue is the exact opposite. It's trying to be too strategic and trying to like play stuff out.
So the last issue that we have, I don't know if you guys have it, because I get all my books on mail order, so I don't know. I'm always a month behind. But he does a good job. But the last issue that I have, so to Charlie's point, is the issue ends with Batman being like, "Okay, Dad," to Thomas Wayne, like, "Let's fight one last time for Alfred." And it's like, bro, you've literally been fighting him for fucking like a year now. Like, what do you mean one last fight? Yeah. So to your point, I loved the issue in Hawaii. And I'm sorry for all the people listening that are like, bro, I haven't read Batman, and we've been going on Batman for a while now, and this is supposed to be an end of year like highlight episode. But They had that great issue of them in Hawaii. And by the way, I forget who the artist is, but Catwoman is fly. But the next issue after that, this awesome issue of them like in Hawaii getting over their shit and coming back
the
together.
Magnum PI Bruce Wayne, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it with the fake mustache. It's great. But then the issue after that is like them still in Hawaii, and there's like an editor's note at the first page, and it's like this issue takes place 2 issues ago. And I was like, and it's a lot more. There's like some more action than in that issue, but it's like Jesus Christ, like what? Tom King, get your shit together. And like I was just saying, like when he's like, okay, Thomas, like let's fight one last time. It's like, bro, you've been fighting this whole time. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I am hoping the next issue puts an end to the Flashpoint Batman story arc. Like they recently resolved the Jor-El story arc in Superman, and I was so glad to see him gone.
I don't know the Jor-El one. Is that from Flashpoint 2 or separate?
No, it was as part of the Doomsday Clock, Dr. Manhattan thing. He did certain things, and one of them was pulled Jor-El out of the moment when Krypton exploded. So Jor-El's been kind of kicking around in the Bendis. Well, I mean, it was prior to Bendis's run but he was a key figure in Bendis's run also, and they just kind of resolved it back like, and now you go back to the planet as it's exploding, and you're gone again. And I'm okay with playing around with things sometimes, but I'm much happier resetting certain things like that back to the status quo. That Jor-El died on Krypton.
Exactly. Are you saying that Bendis ended an event well? Because I think that you're talking about a different Bendis than I'm thinking of.
He did end that well, but it was classic Bendis as like, okay, we close that chapter while opening this even bigger chapter.
Oh, yeah. That sounds right.
So,
anyway.
Neither of you guys mentioned Doomsday Clock yet.
Well, so I think issue 12 only came out a week or two ago, right? Which means it's still in the mail for me. But like, I mean, I read 11 at some point in the past 6 months, like whenever the fuck it came out.
Yeah. And,
it was good. I really just want to get all 12 and just read them at once.
Yeah, sure.
And and Charlie, keep me honest, what I feel will happen is, and again, I haven't read issue 12. It's in the mail or in my, box back at the shop and hasn't been mailed yet, but like it's good and, is not as good as the original Watchmen. And I'm not sure it's supposed to be, but I do feel like it's not supposed to be. So what's the verdict after you've read issue 12? Or maybe what's the verdict before you read issue 12? And does 12 have an acceptable payoff?
12 reframed the series for me in a very positive way. And
oh, snap. Okay.
I'm trying to think of the best way to talk around it. I think it's really, really easy to focus on the story as it was sort of presented to you. But by the time you read sort of the issue 12, it's more interesting to think about the relationship between the DC universe and the Watchmen universe and vice versa.
Oh,
and what they both stand for and all that.
Yeah. When can we talk about TV shows? But sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So I really, really like this series. I do find it funny that occasionally we'll talk about certain things on the podcast, like we prefer this, or we want it this way or this way. Sometimes I just feel like writers listen to us and just like, oh, you like it this way? Well, here you go.
Well, that's a great call. I mean, I wonder, well, nobody's listened to Brock, but like, I do wonder how much, cause we're not the only ones, right? The only outlet.
No, like, not at all.
Obviously. And so like our thoughts are probably, in some echo chamber on some Reddit channel that some creators probably do, take a look at side-eyed and take that into account when they're going forward. So yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. I hope that when I read issue 12, I'll be like, okay, well, that is much better. And when I read all of them in order, I mean, fucking, has it been 3 years? Like, Jesus.
Has it really?
It's been a long...
No, not
because
3 years.
Of delays. So...
Well, it's been
originally it was supposed to be every other. Well, not originally.
No, I guess not, because 12 just came out just before 2020.
Yeah,
by a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it dodged the calendar year 3 years. It doesn't matter, but
I want to say it's got to be 3 years though, and I want to look it up.
I mean, it's been a very long time, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so since we've been talking for a little while and most of the time has been spent on the two major stories, should we just blast through the rest? I mean, sure. I don't have a lot more to say. War of Realms, I read. It was fun, but it was...
Well, here's the problem of War of Realms is me and Charlie were talking about it before the podcast. Sir Higgins is not stocking that one really well.
Okay, so I guess it was...
That sounds like a Higgins problem.
A little bit over 2 years. First issue came out in November 22nd, 2017.
That's Doomsday Clock, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No. Okay, so yes, technically, so almost 4 years calendar-wise, but okay, yeah, so 3 years.
But
3 years calendar.
So,
but
War of Realms
it's like 12 issues, 3 years. Yeah. Come on.
War of Realms frustrated me because I was current on Thor up to War of Realms.
Okay.
And then we just never seemed to have copies past issue 1 at the shop. Like, I never got to read past issue 1 of War of Realms. So I'm waiting for the hardcover now. And of course, King Thor is already out. So I'm like, since Aaron's Thor run started, I was current until we hit War of Realms because I could just never read it.
Interesting. I wonder if that's a Higgins problem or if that's an industry-wide problem.
No, it's a Higgins problem.
So, I mean... So I read War of Realms, but in my back catalog is both Jane Foster, Valkyrie, and King Thor, although King Thor looks infinitely more appealing. And I think that's because it's Ribic, or is he only doing the covers? Is he doing the interiors? He must be only doing the interiors. I'm sorry, covers. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, War of Realms was good. What else came out this year that I read? I mean, there was a bunch of X-Men stuff that I read that didn't matter because Hawk and Pox revamped it. Yeah, Iron Man, Up in the Sky, Superman. I have on my back burner. Haven't read it yet, but I have them all. Oh, what I have read that I liked. Wait, okay, we got to move on. But I did like the Sean Murphy. I love how they're making this whole new universe with the Batman, the White Knight stuff.
Oh, the White Knight stuff, great. Yeah.
Okay, and then what else? We gotta move along. What else?
Batman Damned was interesting. I liked that book.
Was that the one where they showed his dong? What was the one where they showed his dong?
In issue 1, they showed his dong. But no, it was telling a story that it was a story that was not exactly what I was expecting it, but feels like I should have been expecting it, which is kind of nice.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, I don't even have any notes.
Do you have any more?
As I said, the only other one that kind of stands out to me is the Scott Snyder Justice League.
Okay, so
and
keep going.
The thing about the Scott Snyder Justice League, which I find really, really interesting to me, is when I'm current on it, I'm reading it issue to issue. I'm not super hooked on it. Like, it's one of those things, like I read it, I'm like, that was okay. That was pretty good. But if I read 6 issues at a time, I love it. Like, it's just one of those that, ingesting a single issue never necessarily feels like you're getting exactly what you want from the story. But reading a good backlog makes you kind of take in just the scope of the story that's being told much better.
Okay, so quick question. Scott Snyder, amazing Batman run, legendary. Top 10, if not top 5 ever Batman run. Fair?
I have a hard time qualifying. So this is, again, one of those issues.
I mean, nobody's putting this in stone. You can just agree. Or you can disagree.
Certain story arcs, absolutely with him on Batman.
Okay.
But then when you get into the Armored Gordon stuff, or you get into Zero Year, there's definitely
parts. 0 Year. Fuck that shit.
Parts of that sort of run where I'm like, okay, that was okay, but it's nowhere near as good as his highs are really high and his lows are pretty not they're still worth reading, but they are not
right
anywhere close to his highs.
Okay, I'm with you. All I meant was to draw out from you, is this a Scott Snyder being amazing with either Batman and or just single character and the just versus his team books? Because I would say, put and I don't mean to keep going back to Tom King. I mean, name any fucking, like, oh man, I don't even know, just kind of brain farting. But some people are better on team books than they are on solo books.
Sure.
So,
especially Batman, who's like so, I don't want to say delicate.
Well, he could be
Thomas
both.
Wayne and Bane will tell you
very
that
much
he's
a
not
team
delicate.
book or a solo book.
So with Dark Knight Metal and that kind of stuff, they've really played around with the idea that Scott Snyder can do these big epic stories. And Justice League is really weird because it's almost like him going, I'm going to go as epic as possible. I'm going to tackle a crisis level story.
Okay.
And nobody's really talking about it. It doesn't have like this big spotlight on it.
Wait, yeah. I have a question specifically with regards to that for you, Charlie.
Yeah.
Because Toby didn't fucking read it. Okay. Dark Knight Metal. Build as a big event / team book like enterprise. Wasn't that just a like expanded Batman book?
Yeah, it was an expanded Batman book. It was definitely playing around, but the big thing from there.
By the way, Higgins would say, no, I've met him in person. He's definitely not.
But here's my thing about Dark Knight Metal, which I don't know if it was intended to be a universe-altering thing as much as it's sort of turned into. And what I mean by that is obviously the Batman Who Laughs has sort of stuck around and done some amazing things since that book. And a lot of that, again, is written by Snyder. But that being said, what they have done with the Tales of the Dark Multiverse books, where they expand it outside of just Batman, like, that's really where this is going. They're kind of building up to this whole, when you look at the Dark Multiverse as infinite possibilities for dark what ifs, not just what if Batman this or what if Batman this, but like the stuff they've been building up lately is what if Lois Lane got corrupted during the death of Superman and like did this, or what if this character went off and did this? So while Batman is sort of a focal point, they have really started playing around with the Dark Multiverse for all characters. And I love that. I love the idea of just how bad it's almost like the way the Dark Multiverse has changed is to pick a event in comic history and tell a writer to go as dark as possible with this event. Like if you could just say the heroes were fucked and this is going to go as bad as it possibly can, but keep it within the confines of what that event represented. They've gone for it. Can I spoil some stuff for you?
Okay, please, because I will never. First of all, Toby, can you wake up your phone because I can't see you guys anymore? Can you explain to me? It seems to me that so much of this Dark Multiverse is just Batman hanging on Batman, and it's like. And I know that Batman is California, # Batman is California, but like, and all the stuff that they're going to be doing is like, I mean, the fucking, like, the Justice, the fucking the Dark Knight's Metal, whatever it was, like, Justice League, they were all Batman related. It was like, everything is Batman related. And I understand some of some of that is just wanting to make money because Batman is California. But, you know, is anybody going to buy the Dark Firestorm book? No.
So this is where I think he unlocked the potential, and what he's been doing in Justice League is definitely not a Batman book. What he's been doing in Justice League is really weird and trippy in some ways, and for good or bad, sometimes you just kind of have to accept what a writer's doing, and I don't necessarily buy into everything that he's done around the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and sort of playing around with a lot of the building blocks of Crisis on Infinite Earths the way he has been. But what we've been seeing from like the Dark Multiverse and where some of this stuff is going is much more along the lines of I'm going to spoil the Infinite Crisis Dark Multiverse book they put out. That book was basically around the idea of what if Blue Beetle figured it all out and didn't die and basically took Max Lord's place, but did it for the good of the world, but of course got corrupted by the power and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much the Ted Kord Blue Beetle Fall from Grace book.
That sounds awesome.
And that's what the Dark Multiverse has been expanding into, is the idea of these events and how that could corrupt characters that just by changing one point in time, how would that stuff have played out differently?
This wasn't a series. This is a one-off, what if?
So they did a series of like 5 of these Tales of the Dark Multiverse books, and each one sort of was the Death of Superman book, or the Infinite Crisis book, or the Blackest Night book, or the... And
that's awesome. That sounds awesome.
That's exactly what the Dark Multiverse is sort of shifting into, and where they're... I mean, without saying stuff, because I don't know for sure, that seems to be what they're building up towards as the next big book. And I don't know if it will be Metal 2 or what it will be called, but they're building up to other characters and other things that happen in the dark multiverse are coming.
Well, I think that they'd be first of all, Dark Multiverse is such fucking bullshit, because it's like the multiverse is literally like there could be dark like twists to the multiverse, and that is literally the multiverse, but it has more marketing value. I get if it's the Dark Multiverse, so fair play. Okay, we've been fucking talking for a long time about comics, and we have other stuff to get to. Can we talk about something that I have heard because of our once mutual love and now only my love and Scott's love of MPQ, which is Talk to Me, because I've not read any of it, but I've heard that it's actually legitimately good, which is Immortal Hulk, but more to my point, the Carnage stuff, Absolute Carnage. Have you read that?
No, I
mean, that was bombastic. That was big. Did you read any? You didn't read any?
Not the Absolute Carnage stuff. I've read
Charlie.
the Hulk stuff.
Charlie.
I am a bit behind on the Hulk stuff, but like the Immortal Hulk
was okay.
To me, the Immortal Hulk is almost the perfect example of a book that I feel like was selling better than it necessarily should have been, but it is a fun, enjoyable read for like a horror Hulk book. Okay. Like that's...
And is it over? Was it a miniseries, or is it still going on?
It's still going on.
Probably know this.
It's still going on as far as I know, but it's interesting because it's getting all this sort of attention and stuff, which, while I'm glad a Hulk book is getting attention, it is definitely a book that I consider worth reading. I don't consider it like this epic Hulk run
Al Ewing,
or something like that.
That's Al Ewing.
Yeah.
Higgins shits on that guy, but no, you and I love that guy.
Yeah. So I like the book. I think it's definitely worth reading. I don't consider it some groundbreaking Hulk run that I'm going to look back on years from now and be like, oh my God, that was the best Hulk run. Like it feels like it's overhyped.
Interesting. I'm struggling to think of, I mean, you say overhyped.
Well, I think it's a book
what's
that
the last
loves.
Hulk book that was ever hyped? Like, how can it be overhyped?
World War Hulk?
I mean, like Planet Hulk, World War Hulk.
What was that?
A lot of the Pack books.
Were those a decade ago?
Peter David. Oh, absolutely. Those are
Peter David. That was like 2 decades ago.
I know, but that's sort of my point. Is like those are Hulk runs that I hold up there as like quintessential Hulk runs. This is something that I just think is a strong, fun Hulk book to read.
Okay.
Nothing's happened in it where I'm like, oh my God, this is a
snap.
A Hulk run that will stand the test of time.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Absolute Carnage, again, is either because I ran out of time to read it at the shop, or when I went to go look at the shelf, we may not have had.
Higgins just not stocking Absolute Carnage, so Charlie West is just blind.
Because I'm only working at the shop.
Fucking buy them.
I'm only working at the shop one Sunday a month now, and I am absolutely willing to buy hardcovers and whatnot for some of these events. And like, I will absolutely buy a Absolute Carnage hardcover or whatnot when it comes out, collecting it all.
What if there's an Absolute Carnage Absolute Edition? I mean, can you say no to that?
Well, I would not say no to that, but that would be breaking new ground for Marvel.
He is smiling when you just said that down.
I mean,
the minute you say absolute, he starts smiling.
I mean, they kind of have to, even though it's not Marvel's like branding. I mean, come on, Absolute Carnage, come on.
Yeah, no.
All right. Should we move over to the movies?
Well, I mean, I will do this shout out.
Okay.
My favorite collection that came out this year is the monster-sized Marvels. Like the big, giant Marvels book is amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. My
monster-size shout-out is to the monster-size Infinity Crisis crazy, insane box set that they did.
Yeah, the $500 box set that Ryan has on this shelf right now.
You can see us on the camera right now, right?
Whoa, that is sexy. What is that?
That is the Marvels edition that they came out with this year.
Oh, that is so sexy. That's thinner than I would have thought that it would have been. But
I mean, Marvels is only 5 issues and whatnot.
Yeah. I know. But it just looks so thin. Yeah. That's fair.
All right, that was a lot of good comic book talk. If you want more, there's a weekly podcast by the name of The Comic Conspiracy that I could get every Tuesday night.
That doesn't talk enough comic books, but that's okay.
Yeah, you usually do movies, which we're about to talk about now. So, Mr. Bryce, man, what is are we just going to do top 3 all around? Like, you do your 3, I do my 3, and Charlie does his 3, or how you want to do it?
Well, yeah, so much as I'm loath to talk about myself, which everybody knows that I hate talking about myself, I only watched 3 comic movies, I believe, this year. So
you only have 3 to talk about.
Exactly. So I'll go quickly over them because there's only 3.
So let me guess, like X-Men Dark Phoenix is number 1?
Oh, fuck that shit. No. I watched 3 good comic book movies this year. And I just mean to say that I'll go first just because I'm sure Charles has seen all 3 of mine, in addition to many others. And then when he goes over his list, we can. And I guess Toby, you can also now, of course, join. Having seen the comic book movies theoretically of your own.
Yeah,
so the only 3 I believe comic book movies that I saw this year were in no particular order: Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Far From Home, which was literally the order that I saw them.
You did not see the Joker.
So let me tell you something about being actually. Yeah, I don't know how Charlie does it. So being a father with no nerd friends up here. All my nerd friends are back in Cali.
Well, that's the beauty about the Joker. You could watch it with your normal friends. They don't even know it's a nerd-related product.
Okay, well, I'm not going to get into this in this podcast, but basically, my nerd circle has dried up significantly, and so I believe, let's see, Endgame. I saw Endgame with a buddy, Captain Marvel with a buddy, and Far From Home by myself. I saw at least 1 or 2 of the 3 comic book movies by myself, which is something I never thought I'd do when I was back in Cali. But
down here you were rolling 20 people deep on those movies.
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
went with Ryan.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway,
whatever. He's
woe
kind
is
of
me and all
slowed
that
down
shit.
on.
Oh, he just doesn't like people anymore, so he doesn't do it anyway. He doesn't. He secretly gets his own ticket and goes, "Hey man, you watching it? Oh, that's cool. I got tickets for Thursday night for me and Leanne in the back. That's it."
Yeah, it's this whole dad suburban bubble that I'm in is wild because everybody that I know is a dad, which is great, except everybody's you want to go see a movie? I'm sorry.
I'm really glad Charlie's on this podcast right now because you were going to totally call me out. You don't understand because you don't have any kids, and I'm glad Charlie is here and Charlie has watched.
No, yeah. No, I wouldn't say that because it's different for everybody, and even Charlie is able to get out and. I don't know. It's my own fault that my nerd circle has withered and died, but that's not what this podcast is about. This is about celebrating. And that's a whole separate thing. But
all right, let's celebrate.
Is about celebrating this year's comic book movies. So those are the 3 comic book movies that I saw this year.
All right.
I've also heard that Joker was amazing, and there was one other one that I'm just brain farting on that was also amazing. I'm not doing this on purpose. What was the other one that I haven't mentioned?
Hellboy. Obviously.
Nope, that was definitely not it. And it was also definitely not the X-Men one, which I still have not seen and will never see as long as I can, as long as I draw breath.
Shazam was good.
Shazam, that's the one that I was thinking of. Yeah. So I will watch, have not yet watched, but I will watch Shazam and Joker. So nice. Of those would be in my top 5, I feel, but I just haven't seen the other 2.
Sure.
But go ahead, you guys. Go crazy.
Charlie,
I feel like you've seen all 5 of those and more.
Yeah.
How was X-Men Dark Phoenix, Charlie?
So I went to that on opening night, and
a true X-Men fan over there.
Cable wasn't in that movie.
I spent a bunch of time going, do I want to own this? Do I not want to own this? I really don't want to own this. I probably shouldn't own this, but I have all the rest of the movies.
It's my fault that he owns it. It's my fault that he owns it now, by the way.
Do you not own, are there any that you don't own, Charlie?
Well, there's one that I owe him that I haven't brought to him. That's the only one he doesn't own yet, I believe.
in terms of the X-Men movies, I have them all.
Yes.
Even though there's some that I can't bring myself to watch again. But
there's more than one of those, yeah.
Yeah. No, my top movies are, it's weird because I think I enjoyed Far From Home.
Give us a first, second, third, okay. Charlie. Come on.
So my first one, I think I am going to give to Endgame, and it's just based on,
I mean, fucking
based on what they accomplished in Endgame. Yes. It kind of feels like it's almost its own category.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't believe you're even caveating it. Like,
well, because it's interesting because in a way, I think I enjoyed Far From Home in some parts more.
Really?
But it's only in parts. Like, I think the totality of Endgame is amazing in terms of what they accomplished.
Yeah.
But there's also parts of Endgame where I'm like, I don't like the way they handled some of the explanations around time travel and that kind of stuff. Like,
okay, I didn't listen. Can you give the audience a fucking 60-second or less? I didn't listen to the episode where you guys spent half an hour bickering about time travel, but can you?
What do you mean half an hour? What do you mean half an hour? It was like 2 hours or 3 hours long.
So I didn't listen to that episode, but what I heard was
bickering.
You guys were fucking insufferable about the time travel discussion.
There we go.
Yeah. So my thing with the time travel stuff is they went half one way, half the other way. Like, either you're affecting the timeline or you're not. And they went to the point with the old Cap at the end to be like, they affected the timeline, but everything else they didn't affect the timeline. So there was more than a little bit of inconsistency and paradoxy sort of stuff around. They basically wrote a good story and just said, let's ignore any kind of rules we set for time travel, because they kept setting rules and then ignoring the rules they set, which at the end of the day doesn't affect my overall enjoyment of the movie, because they still did an amazing job. It's just when my brain starts thinking about it, it pulls it apart and I can't help it.
Well,
that sounds like a fucking Higgins compliment or criticism, which is annoying.
I'm gonna just piggyback on that just to make this shorter. And
Toby can actually contribute.
Yeah,
Toby, let's hear it.
Yeah, it's rare these days, but I love Endgame. We got 19 movies or 18 movies down, and it's a fantastic, I think, bookend. And I loved Scarlett Johansson in it, and I'm really looking forward to her solo movie. Hats off. And I don't want to go into more because I got so much hate for the Endgame episode, so I'm going to just leave it at that. I really loved it. Really, all the triggers I was doing on that episode is because I was enjoying pressing Ryan's buttons.
It was just Ryan and me bickering with each other primarily, so I triggered a lot of the hate.
I don't know.
Okay.
Then there's Shazam, which I just kind of love for what it is, even though it does...
Wait, that's your number two?
That's my number two. And a large part of it is because I feel like what they did with the Shazam character is Zachary Levi getting to play like a full-blown superhero for once was amazing and great. Some of the other aspects of the movie I think were kind of weird and didn't necessarily fit with the tone, but the core of the movie was exactly what I hoped it would be. And then my number three, coming out of nowhere, is the Batman Teen Mutant Ninja Turtle direct-to-video they did.
That doesn't fucking count,
It counts. It all counts.
Oh, you're the worst. You two are the worst.
No,
why you lump me into that? Why'd you just lump me into that?
You two are the biggest cartoon lovers of the whole comics conspiracy.
Well, maybe you should watch some.
Yeah. That's okay. I have
my fucking life is like batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having Ra's al Ghul and Shredder and having all the
spoiler alert.
Having all the nods to like past Batman stuff and past Turtle stuff and the end credits, like it just felt like it was being like, let's just put all this stuff in there that Charlie will love as a fan of both these properties.
and then put on some toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like regardless of if the story in parts could have been better or whatnot, it was just all the love that they sent towards me puts it on the list.
They wrote a love letter to Charlie with that.
Exactly.
Movie. Okay, that's fair and
I mean, that
creepy.
deserves a numbers 3 spot for that, if they write a love letter to Charlie.
Okay. That is fair. That is very nice. In terms of the movies that all other people that didn't see direct-to-video movies, people that only see movies in the theater, and when they pop up as uninvited ads on their Apple TV, what was the next one on the list?
Mine?
So for Charlie,
Oh,
but
for Charlie.
I do want to hear your top 3, Toby, although I have
I would probably throw Far From Home on my list in sort of the next spot.
What Bryce is really saying, that number 3 doesn't really count. So he was wondering if you took that off, what your other number 3 would be.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what he's really saying right now.
I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying that.
Exactly.
It feels like it's a no-brainer that's Far From Home, and the reason it feels like a no-brainer to me is I really, really dislike the Joker. I really, really dislike Dark Phoenix.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just assumed that I was going to watch Joker and watch Shazam and love them both, because that's all I've heard is that they're both great for what they are.
Joker is a very well-made movie that I never want to see again.
Okay, I've seen a number of...
You just froze out there. Just say that again. Sorry, Bryce.
I've heard what Charlie just said about the Joker, about how it's a very well-made movie that he doesn't want to ever see again.
Yeah.
I've heard that a number of times about several other movies, but I would love to hear him extrapolate upon that Joker review of his.
So, I mean, most of the time when you walk out of a movie, you kind of hopefully get left with some sort of high based on what you watched. I kind of feel like
that's
Joker...
definitely not true. I mean...
To a degree, but... I feel
for
like
all movies that have happy endings, that's true.
No, but I feel like even movies that don't necessarily have happy endings have something about them that you empathize with a certain character, or you get attached to a certain character in the movie, or you really engage with the story.
Okay. What was I forget, the Jared Leto movie with Jennifer Connelly?
What?
No.
Oh.
Fucking, where they're both crackheads.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I remember that movie, and that's probably in the same kind of category for me, where it's like, but even then...
If it can't have a happy ending, why make the movie kind of thing? Or
it's not even necessarily if it can't have a happy ending, why make the movie, but... So, let me take a different approach or example on this. Watching Joker, for the most part of the movie... You go from certain levels of sort of discomfort to kind of knowing what's going on. There's no level of empathy that I have for the main character, which you could argue
Requiem for a Dream. It was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
It was driving
but
me crazy.
It's one of those things that, like, there's no point in the movie where I'm like, I'm really liking this movie. It was just more of a like, wow, he's doing a very good job playing this character and doing this performance.
Okay.
But at some point, I go to a movie to be entertained and to enjoy it, not to appreciate how
well it was made. Okay, so There Will Be Blood. There's a bunch of movies in Requiem also. Like, I hear what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly. 100%, there are some fucking phenomenal movies with amazing direction, like cinematography, acting, that I'm just like, oh, this movie will win a bunch of Oscars and can go fuck itself. Because I cannot be bothered with these movies that, like, I mean, I have less and less time for movies as it is, and like, I appreciate great art, I believe that I do, but man, some of these movies are like, oh man, I want to fucking stick some sort of chopstick in my larynx after watching this movie. Like, Jesus Christ. All right, so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So, and like Hellboy just was trying to do too much. I didn't enjoy it as much as I should have because I love the Ron Perlman Hellboy movies.
So I love the Ron Perlman Hellboy. Can you give us 30 seconds? Because I've not watched and will not watch the new Stranger Things Chief of Hellboy movie.
So he was great in the movie, but it kind of suffered from the how much stuff can we kind of cram in here? It doesn't necessarily feel like the story progresses in a natural way. It's just... We want to have a big giant battle. We want to have a big this battle. We want to have a big this battle. It
felt like a studio movie.
Yeah, it did not feel like they
board
crafted
meeting. This is what we want here, and this is what we want there. All right.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to put it. So I thought he did great, but I do not feel like the script was there at all for how to craft like a good, solid Hellboy movie.
That's too bad.
So if I were going to ask you something that you couldn't possibly know the answer to, so just asking you to speculate. Old Boy is not the gentleman, the actor from Stranger Things and Hellboy is not like a giant Hollywood pitch, as it were. If they were to have had a better backing, maybe better writing team, maybe better director, maybe more profitable studio behind, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, it seems like there was some amount of you get what you pay for with the Hellboy movie. That's not, of course, not always the case. You know, sometimes a higher budget and a more well thought out backroom staff leads to a higher quality product. What was the limiting reagent, or what could they have done better? What was it that they just didn't budget it enough? Was it it seems like everything is kind of the easy answer, but
I feel like they pushed out a script that wasn't curated enough for a strong enough story.
Hellboy movies make a lot of money. Let's make a Hellboy movie. Somebody else greenlit it. They said, okay, look, we can get this guy on the cheap, this actor, and the writing team is willing to do it. Let's just knock it out and make a buck. And it wasn't what it could have been. Is that an oversimplification?
No, I don't necessarily think it's an oversimplification. I don't know how much of it was we have this script, let's do something with it, and how much of it was okay, we're going to make a Hellboy movie and too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, you don't know where the story fell apart, but the story fell apart.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Tobias, I feel like we've gone through Charlie's. Well, I only have 3, but Charlie's got 3 plus a couple more. We haven't talked about Captain Marvel, which I would love to, but maybe first we get Toby's top at least 3.
Well, my top 1 is Endgame, like I mentioned earlier. My number 2 is Alita.
You have good taste.
Alita Battle Angel is my number 2. I was completely.
Oh, Jesus.
What, really?
No, I mean, I don't. I have to. Wait, Alita. What is this?
It's a movie from Robert Rodriguez.
It's based on a manga, therefore it's a comic book.
Yes. Look,
I'll allow it.
I've been hearing about this movie coming out ever since James Cameron bought the rights to it.
Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron?
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of it, because I live in a cave.
Oh, I'm quite amazed by what you just said. But I've been hearing about this movie since like Legends days, like when we're still selling the Viz trade paperbacks of the manga. And I've been hearing these rumors that James Cameron is going to do this movie. Decades and decades go by, and then all of a sudden I see this trailer pop up where, Alita looks kind of weird with the big eyes, but in ways I like, it kind of works because you see as a cyborg, she's not real, so it's kind of, it's a little off, but it kind of worked for me.
It should be just a little off.
Yeah, and the trailer came out, I was kind of like, okay, this could be interesting, and James Cameron's still on it. Robert Rodriguez is directing, which is one of my favorite directors. And I went and watched it, and I was blown the fuck away. I absolutely loved that movie. In fact, that whole weekend afterwards, I was thinking about it nonstop and then rewatched it on that following Monday. Like, I watched it on Friday and I rewatched it on Monday. I absolutely loved that movie.
Yeah,
I didn't see it till it came out on disc, and then I immediately went, this is going to be on my Black Friday list.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean, I'm only just now looking at it online, and it looks like it was very well received, both critically and commercially.
Yeah, it didn't get the people to the box office that it needed to. So.
Yeah, and to be fair, she did look off. Like, her big eyes looked kind of weird in the trailer, which put a lot of people off. But I thought that was exactly the point of it. But I think some people can oversee it, maybe. I thought it was a pretty epic story. They crammed a lot into the movie. They set it up for a nice sequel, which I really would like to see. Hopefully they'll make it. But yeah, I'm just floored. I mean, I think it's like a cool traditional 80s, 90s action movie that's based from a manga.
It does a very good job of sort of taking the manga, putting it into like this big...
I mean, they created the world. The world building was really well done.
The world building is what really sells that movie.
Yes.
And it was done in such a way that it doesn't feel like it was done on the cheap.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. They really put a lot of effort into the special effects and stuff to really craft this world. And
yeah,
I like that a lot.
Okay. Well, Go ahead, Cyrus.
Yeah, my number 3. I was gonna put Joker down there. Again, I think it's a beautiful art movie, but it's not a movie I will rewatch anytime soon. But I don't hate it as much as other people did. I do actually really think it's an excellent movie. So I'll probably put Captain Marvel at number 3, more so just because I enjoyed the movie more. From a film,
which place was Alita for you?
Number 2.
Oh, so you're giving us 2, 3, and then 1.
No, number 1 was Endgame.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, going down. Okay. Wait, I have a question. Okay, so you guys are both shitting on, but you're not shitting on Joker. Higgins famously.
Higgins loves the Joker.
It was the best. Okay, just because he's an emo fuck. Like, why did Higgins like Joker so much? Like, I've heard that it's great.
Well, here's the funny thing.
Not a great superhero movie or movie. It's just a movie. I've also heard that like it's hyped up beyond what it actually is good at. So is where the truth lie?
Here's the funny thing. I think if the Joker wasn't the Joker movie, I don't think Higgins would have cared 2 shits about it. If it was a Martin Scorsese movie with a dude that's about to lose his shit, the same movie, but don't call it Joker, I don't think Higgins would have cared 2 shits about it. Just my 2 cents. Just my 2 cents.
So I agree with Toby for the most part, because I mean they took a lot of nods from older movies and other movies that were made that have all been kind of talked to death about it. But my thing is I kind of feel like the story got crafted that they went, this is what we want to tell, and we can get it greenlit if we craft this character to be the Joker. Like, there were aspects of the Joker in there where I'm like, the Joker should be hyper intelligent, and that's not coming across. The Joker should be like.
You heard my theory on that, right? That the whole movie happens in that very end scene. That's like 2 seconds of his mind. It's the entire movie. That the entire movie. No, is just,
and I get that, but again,
the only
that
way
doesn't,
I accept it too.
That doesn't affect my like. I can appreciate what they did.
Yeah,
doesn't mean it made the movie more enjoyable for me.
Yeah. No, I actually think it was a phenomenal done job. I mean, from the storytelling aspect, from literally everything in that movie, the acting is superb. Like, it's going to win a bunch of awards. I think it's superbly done. This is my top 3. Therefore, I think I'm going to give the nod to Captain Marvel just because it was a fun movie. It doesn't have, the intricacy, the storytelling that the Joker had, not even close. But from a just enjoyment standpoint, no, it's really hard. It's completely polar opposite of movies, right? Captain Marvel, I think I like because I was surprised by it. They had some spins in that movie, the Skrull spins. I actually quite enjoyed it. So it just kind of took me by surprise that I enjoyed that one because I really did not care to watch Captain Marvel before the movie. And afterwards, I'm like, look, that was kind of cool. Joker, however, I was like, dude, they're not going to make that movie unless they got a superb plan in place and they know what they're doing, and that's exactly what happened. So hats off what they did to Joker. But yeah, I guess maybe a tie between the two. I don't know.
Okay, so thank you for saying that. From what I've heard, if this movie was, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's connected to the DC universe at all other than the name. And it seems like if Warner Brothers had come out with a movie about this exact character, even
if it was Tom, it's not going to be this big movie. Right. It was like
exactly. If this was so, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. I've heard it's great. Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. I've heard the director did a great job.
Yeah, no, I salute the movie and I recommend it.
And not named the Joker, and is not supposed to. So, I mean, does it take place in Gotham?
It definitely has ties to sort of like. It has Gotham. They established like this is a pre Gotham as you know it. Like this isn't
the Waynes are part of the story.
Yeah, like the Waynes are still alive,
but you don't know how truthful that is because the Joker is the narrator, right? So there's a lot of things that go really well for the movie.
Didn't know that there's a narrator, right?
Well, there's not, but it's from the point from him.
Can we give a little bit of love to Captain Marvel?
Yes.
Like, I feel like we've talked about Joker. Captain Marvel. I fucking hate the Skrulls. I hated the Skrulls. I hate
you
that
did?
dude's lip. No. I love Captain Marvel, hated that dude's lisp. That actor with the lisp, that drives me crazy. I hate the fact that, and this is also sort of getting to the Far From Home stuff that I don't like. Nick Fury being so gullible, and I know that I just talked about Captain Marvel, and now I'm talking about Far From Home. Just I get sort of them in together because of the Skrulls, but Captain Marvel, I hate that list, which is really not an indictment of the movie. I absolutely love the Marvel movie, and I don't really have a lot more than that to say about it. In Far From Home, I absolutely hated the fact that, like, the idea that Nick Fury would be duped by Mysterio was just absolutely mind-bogglingly, agonizingly painful to me.
But in Far From Home, it's not him, right? Right,
but watching it, I was like, wait, but Nick Fury is like so smart. Why is he being bamboozled by special effects? I'm sorry for talking about both movies at the same time, but yeah, Captain Marvel, I hated his lisp, loved everything else, and I really love the fact that, like, my daughter, 4 years old, knows who Captain Marvel is now. Like, really cool to me. Separately but related, From Home, also great movie. Have some nitpicks. One of them is I was like, why Nick Fury, who all shit together and is step ahead of everybody else, being duped by this special effects wizard that is Jake Gyllenhaal. That annoyed me. But I mean, still very on the whole. So yeah, that's where I am with those two.
Hey, Bryce, my good friend. I'm gonna hang up and recall you real fast because I think the internet is like a little joggy right now because it was like skipping every second word.
Yeah.
That's because I'm remixing the conversation.
Hello.
Hello.
B. I.
Now you're doing it on purpose.
Well, at the end of the last one, I was doing it on purpose too. At the end of the last FaceTime.
Oh, did you?
Okay. Could tell.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so for the listeners out there, or sorry about the.
Wait, are you recording?
Yeah.
He never stops.
I never stop. I may cut some of it out, but I probably leave most of it in. Even though, I mean, you can hear what you're trying to say, but it's just it's choppy. So for the listeners out there, I'm sorry, we're working some new gear. I think for most, I mean, it happened here and there, but for the most part, it went pretty smoothly. But I think we're running the wireless internet here. They just kind of went a little choppy there towards the end. Maybe we're just talking.
It's because Charlie Hustle's kids are playing Minecraft upstairs. They won't stop.
Well, as far as I know, they just all went to bed, so it should have gotten better, not worse.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I'm ready to keep on trucking.
All right. So Ryan usually does a little bit of honorable mentions of movies are not necessarily comic book movies. I'm gonna do this.
This will be all you guys.
Yeah. I'm gonna do this kind of fast. Me and Charlie watched Jojo Rabbit together. Actually.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
I really, really enjoyed that movie. Advertised as a comedy. And the scene that hits you so hard with some serious shit. That
So Jojo Rabbit, that opening is one of the most uncomfortable things to sit in ever.
I actually thought that was quite funny to me. Wait, which opening? Remind me quickly. It was when he goes to camp?
Before he goes to camp, when he kind of does a thing and then he's like running and showing all the like news footage from World War II.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, that is so uncomfortable.
So do you know anything about Jojo Rabbit, Bryce, man?
I do not.
Have you heard of it?
Google it. I have not heard of it, but I'm sure that it's amazing.
So Scarlett Johansson's in this one. It's about a little boy who goes to Nazi camp.
So it's Taika Waititi.
Wait. What you're saying? So I watch Colbert almost every night.
Okay.
The night after, and I feel like I've seen some. Jojo Rabbit sounds familiar now that you say that. Keep going.
The kid has an imaginary friend, and it's a Hitler. A 10-year-old's version of Hitler. That's his imaginary friend, which makes it kind of funny because occasionally he flips out.
And I mean, this is all in World War II in Germany. And,
wait, is this the one with that dude from the director of Thor?
Yes. He plays Hitler and directed the movie. And I think he wrote it too.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Wait, keep going.
Yeah. But it's hilarious because Hitler would lose it sometimes, but it'd be what a 10-year-old would think Hitler would say.
It was kind of mirroring his... Like, he starts completely and totally buying into the Nazi Germany propaganda, but through the evolution of the movie, every time sort of Hitler's throwing a temper tantrum because he's starting to doubt that sort of like blind fanaticism.
Yeah. We talked about it on the regular podcast
awesome.
quite a bit. Yeah, but highly recommend Jojo Rabbit.
Wait,
Yes,
I'm
sure.
sorry. Quick question. Are we done with the comic book stuff? So the honorable mention is non-comic stuff?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, so I'm gonna give Jay and Silent Bob its praise. Like I mentioned on the regular podcast, it didn't hit all the notes as sharp as Kevin Smith movies have done in the past. However, I think it's a very nice bookend to all his View Askew universe movies, and it hits you similar to Jojo Rabbit. It has a point where it really hits you with some good life messaging stuff. So,
so the question is, in terms of like good movies by Kevin Smith, which I would like argue that there are, versus sellout 100% movies, which there are others of. This
is
a Kevin Smith movie. It is absolutely a Kevin Smith movie, and he definitely does his.
That doesn't wait. But my spectrum is all Kevin Smith movies.
Yeah,
there's some great Kevin Smith movies. And there's some total sellout garbage Kevin Smith movies.
Which ones are you calling the sellout ones? Because as far as I can, there's only been one which he disregards himself to. Also,
which one is the one? Okay, well, I'll answer first. I think that Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is a 110% sellout movie, and I think that his first movies are great movies.
Sure.
Where on the spectrum, or what is your spectrum, and where does this fall?
Well, I feel like Cop Out was his so-called sellout movie, which he completely hated and almost quit Hollywood because, or did quit Hollywood.
Wait, I don't even know about Cop Out. I got to look that up.
This is a Tracy Morgan movie with Bruce Willis.
Yeah, but that wasn't
Was that View Askew though?
Nope.
No.
That's the movie that turned him completely off on movie filmmaking.
Yeah, but didn't he just make an appearance in that movie? That wasn't like him directing it or anything.
That's a Kevin Smith directed movie.
Clue that
in
was.
Fact, that's
because he had the one with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
Or something.
I didn't see that one either. That was when they were married for a hot minute.
That for me was a big sellout movie. That was the one where like he took money to write and make a movie that just didn't work because he was trying to create a
Jiggly? I didn't think he had anything to do with that one.
No, not that one.
Or are you talking about Jersey Girl?
I think I'm talking about Jersey Girl.
Yeah.
It must be that one. Ben Affleck and J-Lo had like two movies that they were in together very close back to back. When they were together, there was a whole thing. I was just wondering, like, is this actually a good Kevin Smith movie, or is it another garbage?
If you were to ask me to recommend Kevin Smith movies, this probably not be the top of the line, right? Plus, this is a movie where you kind of got to see the other movies first for the payoff, basically. It seems like more so a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back sequel than anything else, but he hits upon all the View Askew movies, and I thought it was well done in that aspect.
All right, fair enough.
And it does bookend Chasing Amy really well, and that was like my favorite part in the movie.
All right, I like Chasing Amy. Maybe I'll see this movie.
I mentioned Fighting with the Family on Ryan's podcast that I really enjoyed about the life of Paige, who became a wrestling star. I thought that movie was really well done. I still have to see the documentary version of that movie is based on, but I enjoyed it. But this all leads to the action category, which I really wanted to talk about. One is John Wick 3 was a big one this year. Yeah. Seems like you actually seen that one, Bryce.
No, but I'm the absolute worst. I've seen John Wick 1, and I fucking absolutely love Keanu Reeves, and so I'm just the worst comic nerd fan ever.
It was the year of Keanu Reeves this year, right?
I did, because I almost watched whatever that Netflix movie was that he like sort of ghosted on.
Always Be My Maybe?
That sounds right.
Which is also a really good Bay Area movie with a bunch of underground Bay Area songs on it.
Okay, that is awesome, and I believe you. I just didn't know that. But, yeah, I mean, I fucking absolutely loved the first movie, and then just haven't seen the second, and then the third one came out, and I was like, what the fuck? I haven't seen the second one yet. Nah. And then hashtag 2 kids and a full-time job, sure. And I don't know how you guys found the time, but okay.
Well, I don't have a full-time job. Well, actually, I do. Never mind. Hobbs and Shaw is probably the favorite action movie of the year. We already know I'm a big fan of the Fast and Furious movies.
Wait. So am I. How does this rank in the? Because I'm surprised.
Dude, I think this is my absolute favorite one.
Oh, fuck you! Get out of here.
I'm
what?
dead serious. I think this is my absolute favorite one.
Okay, is it because of the writing or because of the stars?
It's because of everything.
Okay,
yeah.
Extrapolate, please.
It is a very good movie. Now, mind you, I have not seen all the Fast and the Furious movies, but I could just sit down and watch this movie and
like them all anyway.
So,
well, Vanessa Kirby, I think was stealing the show a little bit on that movie. She was freaking magnificent. Who plays Shaw's sister? But look, they basically plucked those two characters out of the Fast and Furious universe and just kind of made a separate movie of it, and I thought it worked really well.
It is very cool, I will say, that they did that, and the fact that there's the potential, because it was so successful, that they will have a sequel of the spin-off in this universe that has, in my opinion, a decade ago, this quote-unquote universe has no business being a universe,
no, absolutely.
But it absolutely is nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I keep referring to them as comic book movies because they totally are. You know, you're getting spin-offs, you're getting side stories. I compare it to this Hong Kong series called Young and Dangerous, where it's a story about these 5 kids that join the triads, and it's very similar to Fast and Furious. Well, not in the big blockbuster kind of way, but you know, each movie is basically an episode, right? So it starts. The first movie is with them as kids, and you know they kind of want to join the triads, and by movie 5 they run everything at that point. But that story has like, you know, prequels. It had them as kids. It has you know, side movies where, you know, it like focuses on the other gangs for a movie or two. So in a very similar way, you know, they're kind of bound in the way they tell the stories where, you know, they probably started with one and then they kind of splintered into a bunch of other stuff.
So,
yeah,
I will say this. One of the things that I absolutely love about just the Fast and the Furious movies in general is they are one of those rare series that looked like it was going to be done by like movie 3. Like,
the one last ride.
Like it felt like, okay, this franchise is done, and then it just got new life, and all of a sudden it can't be stopped. Like every movie does better than the last movie, and it does not seem like it's topped out yet.
Well, I'll be honest, the number 8 I think was not my most favorite of them, but Hobbs and Shaw I think is my favorite next to 5 and 6.
That's incredible. I mean, like when they had the number 3, the Tokyo Drift with nobody recognizable, I was like, okay, well, they're just putting this out to pasture, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And had 4 with like the comeback, and then it just snowballed from there, where it was like, oh, I'm sorry, did you think that we were done? And I had like 5 and 6, and then people from like Tokyo Drift are like joining the crew, and it's now this whole connected universe. It's like,
dude, no, it's totally. Shit. I mean, look, they had the end credit scene in Tokyo Drift where Dom, you know, Vin Diesel shows up at the very end. And the rumor has it he did that. Did you know that?
I've never seen that movie, so I didn't know that.
Okay. He shows up at the very end. Rumor has that he did that to get the rights for Riddick, so he can make more Riddick's movies with him in control of it. So, but that kind of snowballed into
what?
Yeah. So there's, I don't know how true
what does that have to do with Tokyo Drift?
That's how he showed up in that movie. He made a deal with the studio to get the rights for Riddick.
Vin Diesel showed up as Riddick in Tokyo Drift?
No, he's basically saying Vin Diesel agreed to do that scene at the end of Tokyo Drift in the agreement that they would give him back the rights to the Riddick character.
Yeah.
Wait, but they don't put him on the billing for Tokyo Drift, so how would they make any
He's in the end credits Marvel style.
Okay. I will agree that he's smarter than I am, because...
Well, okay. Justin Lin got to direct Tokyo Drift, and he got, you know, Vin Diesel to show up, or the studio and money, I'm sure.
Did Justin Lin direct the subsequent Riddick movies?
No, Justin Lin directed all the Fast and Furious movies except for the last, I think, 2 of them.
Okay. Well, let's just move along, because I'm obviously confused.
Okay. TV. I think you don't watch the TV stuff. Or do you? Or do you?
I watch the best TV I watch all of it.
Okay, which
So
I assume
well versed in all the best TV. Give me some TV. Are we doing a top 3? Because I have literally 3 shows.
Do your top 3 shows.
I have a lot of honorable mentions, but for comic book movie or comic book shows, I have 3.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of the order because holy shit, I just this week finished Watchmen and holy fucking shit. So the 3 shows I'm not even sure if there are any Marvel shows out there, but my comic book TV shows that I watched this year were Umbrella Academy.
Supposedly Punisher was this year.
Really? Fucking Punisher was amazing. Was that this year?
Supposedly.
Does that count?
2. Well, season 2 of Punisher was this year.
Well, I thought the season 2 was great, but anyway, so I didn't know that. Sure, I didn't even think. I didn't know that it was qualifying for there, but at that process. But yeah, so it would be Umbrella Academy and The Boys and Watchmen and Umbrella Academy. I was like, holy shit, this is like number 1 for the year. This is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then I watched The Boys and I was like, holy fucking shit, this is number 1. This is the absolute thing I've ever seen.
Let me guess. And then you watch Watchmen.
Absolutely crazy. And then I watched Watchmen and I was like, holy fucking shit. I don't think that I ever. So, Umbrella Academy, love it. Quickly fell to 3rd out of those 3. It was not good. It's just, like, I didn't want a lot of comic book TV. But holy fuck, The Boys, absolutely far and away number 1 until I watched Watchmen. And I'm not saying that Watchmen surpassed it as number 1, but I was just blown away by I was like, there's 0% chance. I was so talk about expectations. I was so convinced Watchmen would be like, even if it's good, because it's HBO, even if it's good, there's no way that it can be like very good. And I totally am eating eating my foot or whatever the fucking expression is. But yeah, I absolutely loved Watchmen. The Boys, I can't wait to talk to you guys because I know you guys are going to talk about it because holy fuck, that came out of, for me, absolutely where and is my favorite show, one of my favorite shows of the year. But I don't want to skip over completely for me because I also feel like Gerard Way is a weird motherfucker. But I was like, holy shit, this great story. And all 3 of those, Watchmen doesn't count. So for The Boys and for Umbrella Academy, I've heard that the source material comics wise was not as easy to follow as maybe some mainstream comics, and maybe not as well received as the comics were when they were published. But I got to hear what you guys think because those are the only 3 that I watched. But I really feel like if you give anybody a list, even Charlie who loves everything, if you guys give anybody a list of all the greatest TV shows of this year, you'd be hard pressed to not put your top 3. So maybe I just lucked out, or maybe I'm just a pretentious a-hole. But
no, I think both are true. I personally think you're there. So Watchmen, as of this recording right now, only watched halfway. I'm sure I'll finish it before the year's end. I just haven't finished it yet. But
I haven't finished it either yet.
Even with what I've watched, it'd be up there. The
I'm
Boys.
So glad I didn't spoil anything accidentally.
No, The Boys. I really enjoy. From just because I've been a big fan ever since the beginning. Since it's an Amazon show, I for some reason have not kind of worked that way yet. Shows on Amazon, I'll try to watch, and if I don't continue right away, I lose track of them just because it's a different app. So I really need to just go back and watch them. I haven't actually watched that show yet. So I think I watched 10 minutes.
The Boys, I completely agree, is better than the comic book, show. But I feel like Garth Ennis as a writer, I kind of feel like will go well beyond the edge where okay, this gets the point across. He always just takes it as far as possible. So scenes that are messed up in the show are so much more messed up in the comic book, by far.
Yeah.
I can imagine there's some extra stuff that goes on there.
Yeah. So I actually find the show more enjoyable because there's some narrative to we don't need to go that far to get the point across. So I actually think this show is much better than the comic in that case. Umbrella Academy, that show for me was one of those rare examples where every single episode felt better than the last, and I was more engaged and
I absolutely loved and adored
ramped
Umbrella
up
Academy
so well that by the end of it, I was in love with that show.
I even pulled up the Spotify music playlist for that show and started listening to all the music just because I enjoyed it so much.
Now, mind you, for me, The Boys was not on my list. And Watchmen, I loved everything I saw, but I haven't seen the last 2 episodes of it because I binge watched it during a free HBO weekend, which of course got me through all but the last 2 episodes. So
you have a great full-time job. You're a cheap motherfucker.
Yes, I am a cheap motherfucker.
He's just not Ryan Higgins, who's paying for full access for every freaking.
No, I always do I subscribe to HBO for a month and binge watch these things, and I subscribe to this for a month and binge watch
I
these
really,
things.
really want to see For His Dark Materials.
So I watched the first 4 or 5 of those. And I was enjoying it.
Do not spoil that shit because I will cut you. I love Lynn.
Will that get you back in the area? Just so you can arrive to cut me?
He does it virtually.
Exactly. She was some cable.
But no, I unfortunately I have to give it to the season 2 of The Tick, even though I'm very sad that show got canceled. So I'm not going to get a season 3.
Oh, nobody saw that coming.
No, I think The Tick even got. Well, no, but I think The Tick got some love from the Facebook group as well, right? Yeah.
The Tick was a phenomenally great
that to
show.
Troll Charlie. I only do that to Troll Charlie. It's
and Doom Patrol. Holy shit, that show was so much better than I ever thought. See,
I'm weird on. We still got to do our got to do our what we call it, the roundup for Doom Patrol.
I was very, very down on season 1 of Titans, and season 2 is better, but I'm still kind of.
It's got some gems in season 2 though, but it ended kind of.
Yeah. But Doom Patrol from start to finish, I was just loving it.
There's just look.
It's magic. It's magic in a bottle.
It is. Well, I guess you could call it magic. There's those stories are out there, and there's some stuff I really, really like in that. Like I actually like the street storyline. Yeah. There's some other stuff I really enjoyed in there, but overall, I'm like, man, this is so out there. It might be over my head.
Yeah. No, but that was definitely something that caught me very off guard, just how good that show was and how it's not like anything else. And then I also kind of want to acknowledge the fact that season 3 of Legion was this year. And Legion is another one of those shows that just is not like anything else on television. And
that's one of your shows too, right, Bryce?
Yeah.
It's one of those shows I keep telling him to watch Legion every year.
On FX?
Yeah.
For
someone that only watches good television.
Humongous Marvel X-Men fan, I'm the worst. If it's not on some streaming app, and maybe it is, and I just don't know.
I think it's on Hulu.
I
think that's maybe the third time I told you that too.
No, I dropped Hulu though to get whatever it's called, Disney Plus. I didn't the
you cheap.
Oh, Charlie, don't even start. I fucking absolutely. I have no excuse. I'm just the worst. I absolutely love Legion. I would probably love it. I've heard that it's a great show. I don't know. Hey, in terms of, we haven't done honorable mentions yet. Can we talk about The Good Place?
The Good Place? Who are you? Are you Charlie?
The Good Place. What the fuck? The Good Place. Amazing. Wait, hold on. Let's talk about. I'm sorry, that's fault. Let's stick to comic books for a second. I have not seen Preacher. I hear that people want to talk about Preacher. I've not seen it. I don't know what that's, but it's probably amazing. It probably was by Ryan Higgins.
If you're going down the Facebook list, we'll do that in a minute. We could do that now. We could wrap up the TV talk right now, and we just move over.
Oh, I am not looking at the Facebook list.
Oh, okay. You just got a really good memory.
Well, not a really good. I looked at it yesterday, and somebody said, it was today.
It was earlier today.
I remember what it was. Yeah. Somebody said something about Preacher. But anyway, before we move on. Okay, so you guys will see Watchmen. What I want to talk about more at some point in time, because you guys haven't seen it yet, is whether or not, and there's probably answers in the internet that I just haven't Googled because I fucking absolutely hate spoilers, but if this is like, and this is not a spoiler, but is this a sequel to Watchmen, or is it like a parallel universe?
That's a sequel.
I don't know.
It's 30 years.
It's a sequel.
30 years later.
So what I don't understand behind the scenes is like lit by Gibbons and because if you see on the credits, and I know the whole
so I think it's a sequel to the
nothing
comic
to do
book, right?
with any of his material.
Yeah, it seems like it's a sequel to the comic book instead of the actual movie.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about the movie at all. I was thinking only about the comic book. But okay, that's a good point. Okay, so every episode that you guys have seen and that I've seen, it's all, these characters are created by Dave Gibbons, like every episode, with no mention of Alan Moore. And I assume, that
he just doesn't want anything to do with it.
He wants nothing to do with like his material being like in pop culture.
Yep.
Okay. That's one question that I have.
That's a good old Alan Moore.
That is a status quo since even like the Watchmen movie. He's wanted nothing to do with any of his.
Because I am fucking blown up because I understand that stance. If they're going to take your material and they're going to shit all over it and they're going to put something out that's garbage and you're like, you don't want your name attached to it. But fuck, man. Like, yeah, again, no spoilers. Like, the scene, and spoiler alert, I guess, like, continues. They're great episodes. Like, the quality is so high and they do a great job of the episodes. So, that's a bummer. That he doesn't want to be associated with that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can only talk about the shows I've seen. I haven't seen any of the CW stuff, but yeah, Umbrella Academy. I heard that they are filming season 2 if they're not done yet, and I absolutely love season 1 of the Umbrella Academy. Absolutely loved it. Same. And then and then Boys. I also heard that they were already filming that.
I think they're already done.
Okay, that had an immense twist at the end of season 1. I started watching that as like, okay, what? So if any of you haven't seen The Boys season 1, it's on Amazon Prime. If you're a gentleman, your SO, your significant other, probably, if you don't, subscribe to Amazon Prime. You have the for free. Watch The Boys. It is an amazing TV show that I've heard that the comic book is absolutely up again. Because it's amazing. It's basically what if the Justice League were a bunch of sellout corporate stooges. It's as the premise goes, that's basically what it is. But it's a great show. Really high quality production. Go and watch it.
Yay. Yeah. I think we're hitting the 2-hour mark here. Let's do the Facebook thread quick hits real fast, and then this might be it for our cool year's end episode.
All right.
Michael Scott Fullard. Full Ford. What is the most surprising moment in comics for you this year or in the last decade? Mine, for example, was when Marvel showed Captain Marvel cutting Red Ghost into pieces using his shield, partially for the gore, partially because of the shield. And that's a question mostly for you and Charlie Man, because the Topster hasn't been reading shit lately.
Okay, so since I have terrible ADD, Charlie, if you don't mind me going first, because I'll forget the question otherwise. But my 2 things that are top of mind for me is to allow what's his book to go Hydra Cap. To do Hydra Cap. The decision man, like, be like, this is good. This will put butts in the seats. This will be good for Captain America. The Hydra Cap thing was a crazy. That's like more of a decade answer. I thought that was a pretty bold move. I don't think that it worked out like anybody thought that it would, for good or for bad. I think that it was sort of met with equal parts good and bad, and whatever. I also think that the biggest surprise, pleasantly for me, was the Hawks and Pox stuff. I mean, obviously I'm closest to that, so that's going to, unsurprisingly be my answer. But just the idea of, like, the X-Men have had a turgid time the past few, I would say years, if not decades. And for them to absolutely reboot it in a way that nobody ever saw coming, that was a fucking crazy surprise for me, and I'm sure Charlie too. Like, just coming out of nowhere to entirely redo the entire history of the X-Men universe for it to come this year and so late in the year, I did not see that coming at all. So that's my biggest surprise.
Yeah, specifically the twist they did with Moira for me was probably the biggest surprise.
Totally.
Just because, and it's not one that I fully am on board with, but it's super interesting, and I super want to see. I'm going to just keep using the word super. No. No, I thought the way they kind of messed with her identity in a lot of ways and the timelines and stuff made me very interested to see like how different things played out and that kind of thing. I mean, I will say the end of Doomsday Clock has some parts in it that surprised me, but I don't want to spoil any of those. I'm trying to think if there's any other really good
I got one.
Shocks.
The spoiler 3 years in the making. Doomsday Clock. It's like, I mean, did issue 12, was it mid-December when that came out? Like,
no, it just came out. It just came out. This just came out. Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like you're trying to do a year end. And it's like this story's been building for 3 years, and I want to talk about it, but I haven't read it in the fucking mailbox.
Hey, to be fair, this one is going to go up like either right before the New Year or right after. I'm not entirely sure.
No, he'll get it before the New Year
or next year because it's something we recorded. I actually do got something to add to this. Mine was seeing Dolph Lundgren, He-Man in the He-Man and the Multiverse, or Masters of the Multiverse comic book. I thought that was I never thought I would ever see that.
What?
Yeah. Dolph Lundgren.
You know, a comic book was made as a love letter to Toby.
I don't know if it's a love letter, because I actually believe some of the He-Man stuff is in order. Like, when they go into space, the space He-Man shit, I thought that was actually from...
Whoa.
From Eternia, going to another planet, and they come back eventually. But they made it so it's...
Space He-Man?
Oh, dude, totally, dude. It was completely horrible, but I loved it. Yeah, they go into space, and it's like a sci-fi He-Man. But so in this miniseries they're doing Masters of the multi-universe, or whatever they called it. Each He-Man show its own basically version or its own universe, and then Dolph Lundgren He-Man shows up with a little Gwildor, which I thought was funny. I never would see it in a comic book ever.
In a He-Man book, Dolph Lundgren shows up.
In He-Man comic book, Dolph Lundgren He-Man shows up. The movie He-Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fucking... All right, fair play. That's very cool. Good for you.
Wei Hing Yao, or did you have anything to add still? Sorry, Charlie.
I'm still just racking my brain going, I'm sure something else happened, but that was probably back in like March, and how am I going to remember it now?
Yeah. Exactly. Wei Hing Yao says, how much Patreon money will it take for this to be a frequent hosting trio? I say $1 million. No, I actually don't know.
What you need to do.
So we just need to start our own Patreon.
No.
Exactly. You need to fucking either do that, or you need to get on fucking Higgins' case. Higgins has an amazing business model that he just can't be bothered to spin off shows because he's comfortable doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah. Well, he still has like one of the roundups in the can that we gave him like 6 months ago or a year ago at this point.
Yeah, it almost feels like when it comes to anything we hand over to Higgins, we can just assume he hasn't put it all out.
Unless you're
just
Bryce.
Give him shit about it.
So I think we're actually in good hands here because we got Bryce on this episode. He does care when Bryce Larsen's on.
Oh, no.
No, he does. Right. He does. Because he does like his little Bryce briefly, boom, it's up
anyway,
there.
To answer Toby's question, if you want to hear more content with the three of us brilliant and handsome gentlemen, you either need to set us up with a separate spin-off podcast, or you need to get Higgins to pull his head out of his ass and become more financially savvy, I guess. Higgins is a little behind the curtain, open the kimono, up the skirt. That's weird.
Where are you going with this?
Higgins has a great thing going, and he loves posting very easily what he can post, and he can't be bothered with like making that his main source of income because he has a much more primary source of income, which is totally solid and obvious. But if you want a podcast with Charlie and Bryce, it's a whole separate beast that we need to unlock the cage. Let the beast cage, Charlie.
I think we only heard bits and pieces towards the end of that rant.
I'm just going to assume what you said is They just need to set us up with our own Patreon that will generate content.
That means we just got to set up our own Patreon and do our own content is what we're really saying, probably. We'll see. Yeah. Talal Farouk is saying, Year's End. What is Doomsday Clock?
Okay. So
it's a comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we touched on it. Doomsday. That's basically my question.
I think it's a troll question. Yeah,
it is a total troll question. And Charlie read issue 12. I have not, but reading issue 11, fucking several months after reading 10, several months after reading 9. It's like I don't even fucking remember what I'm reading. So I do look forward to reading them all like at once. But fuck, man, like. They did not need to do this. Like, I understand it being a long, drawn-out process back in the day, but...
So you would have preferred if they finished the whole book and just have it come out monthly?
I mean, wouldn't 99.9% of us?
Yeah, but then we probably would have gotten to read this book till, like, 2 years from now.
Sure, I would fucking absolutely take that.
Yeah.
I would, shelve it until it's ready.
Yeah.
I think nobody would disagree with that.
Yeah. Josh Pickett says, how about some love for The Boys, which we did. Last God comic. Do you guys know what this
The Boys
comic?
is fucking amazing. If you've not watched The Boys, and I believe that we probably have a 50% or more male listener demographic.
I think it's more than 50%.
Some insensitive as a motherfucker comment that I would make is that either you or your old lady subscribes to Amazon Prime, and if not, why not? Because you absolutely should. The Boys comes free, so watch The Boys. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Go.
Last God comic book. You guys know what that book? I actually don't know it.
I want to say that's one of those that got dropped by one publisher and then picked up by another, but I haven't read it.
All right. And Preacher the Show, which I never really got into, nor the comic book. I know it's great. Everybody loves it.
Final season, but I've watched the rest of it. I mean, it's a good show, and this is one of those cases where I've watched the show and I've gone, I really need to go back and reread the comic book because I don't remember certain things in the show. I'm like,
it's probably also
holy
condensed,
crap,
right?
they got to that really, really soon. Is that right?
In the
and then
show
I'll
now,
flip through it and be like, oh, I guess that was really early in the comic book too. Like, I don't remember things happening in the right order after reading the comic book, thinking back to it now. But I will say this, that's one of those comics that I absolutely remember the ending of. And I've been waiting for the ending since the show started. I just haven't got around to watching the final season yet, but I'm going to be so disappointed if I get to that last episode and it doesn't have certain things from that final issue of the comic, because that for me is what defines that show.
Okay.
Well, that story.
Yeah. Nice. Joseph G. Duff. How about some 2020 predictions and 2030 predictions /wants? I want a Gambit miniseries, and no, I'm kidding. Yeah. What are you guys looking for in the next 20 years? Good X-Men movie?
Well,
yes, a good X-Men movie is something I would look for.
2020 is literally a week and a week.
Yeah.
2030 is a decade in a week.
What he's really meaning, I think, is in the next 10 years, what do we want to see?
So okay. I don't know if it'll be in 2020 or 2021, but I absolutely expect the original Cable's going to show up and shoot young Cable in the head.
In the head?
And it's just going to be done.
Oh, justice shall be done, Charlie. I believe that, there will be in some... Okay, great call. In some capacity, Cable, our Cable, #real Cable, #Cable is better than California. I got to think of a better hashtag for that. Will show up in 2020 in some capacity as they realize that Kid Cable is the worst, and that they try to segue back to having Cable be the Cable that we deserve and love. I'm more curious in your guys' 2030 interests or predictions. I will say 2030. Here we go. Just spitballing. DC will finally have its shit together with regards to movies, although that's a bold fucking prediction. And then let's see here. By 2030, yeah, I can see them having their shit together.
Well, I mean, they've already done a lot of good steps in the right direction this past year. So
Yeah.
as long as they don't fucking drop all that and be like, now we're going to do this, which they're known to do.
I'm slightly.
They are known to do that, Charlie.
Like
Okay, another bold prediction for 2030 is, and I don't mean for these all to be shitting on, although sorry. DC will have another. Oh, this is going to anger so many people. DC will have another IP other than Batman, which I argue right now is like the Batman and the Bat family of the Bat agenda is like their main thing. So 2030, they have separate major IP or agenda. Just to shit on, let's see, can I do the shit on Marvel? Let's see. I don't know. Not shitting on Marvel, only because it's top of mind, is that 2030, we are in the midst of an amazing X-related, I was going to say X-related, but that sounds a little dirty, X-Men-related universe, how we have with the Avengers now, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hopefully, a decade from now, we are coming to the tail of some absolutely crazy X-Men-related, we own the movie rights, motherfuckers, IP epic story arc movie-wise. So that would be my Marvel one. Okay, another bold prediction 2030, which isn't very bold, is that, I hope, this is more of a hope prediction, that we get like a third, like Image, Dark Horse, whatever, get some sort of third-party major, IP going on the big screen. Whether it's like a connected universe or not, but I mean, you guys would have like help me out because I understand The Boys is basically owned by DC because it's Vertigo. Is that correct?
No. It started under Vertigo, but they canceled it. So,
well, they quickly let another publisher pick it up because they went in a way they didn't really want it to go.
So,
I mean, it's owned by Ennis, basically.
Yeah.
So, would he be, if he were to do more comics of them, would it be under?
No, it's under like a third company at this point. It went from Wildstorm under, I think, Dynamite for a long time, and I think now it's under something else. It's creator owned.
Yeah.
Whether it's comics or movie,
I mean, he's done with it. He's finished the run.
Including some miniseries and all that kind of stuff. So.
All of a sudden, like they back up a dump truck to his house, then drop off a bunch of dollar bills, and all of a sudden he's not done, right? So
sure, but I think they got a long ways to go before they get there.
Oh, I don't know. Was there enough source material that he's got a long?
It went to like 97 issues,
plus some miniseries and stuff.
Yeah.
They have a lot of source material still to get through.
Okay, I didn't know how much. I don't know if what they covered was the first 10 issues, was the first 50 issues, was it the first 100 issues? I don't know because
I actually
you can gloss over a lot of shit in your TV making. Anyway, all I want by 2030 is for there to be a third party, which is probably a pipe dream, but I would absolutely love it. And I would love in terms of competition, Rising Tide and All Ships and all that shit. I would love to see to get their shit together so that Marvel, like, what I'm really afraid of is in the next decade, Marvel's like somebody takes it at some point in time, and Marvel's like, "Fuck you, bro. We got it all figured out. We're all good. We our shit don't stink." And then they start to go help because to me, Marvel has been fucking infallible and amazing and perfect. And I mean, for the most part, Higgins and a bunch of clowns think that including myself, think that there's a bunch of shit that they've done wrong. I not like all the slapstick stuff from Guardians 2, but nitpicking aside, they've done immensely well with all the movies that they've done. They haven't had, I think, a true dud yet. And so I am very worried because at some point in time, I feel like that will have to happen just because of statistics or whatever. But anyway, I hope that DC figures out their shit so that there can be some competition or co-opetition so that they can get their shit going.
Nice. Keith McLear Jr. is saying basically stuff where he touched upon early in this podcast. What are true thoughts on Tompkins' Batman run? Also, the Doomsday Clock stuff, and if it was a big deal if it stayed on schedule. So we kind of talked about all of that. So I'm going to move on to Tom Zilla, Who won the decade?
Yeah. Wait. I'm sorry. Right before you go on to that, I did just want to nail in the coffin for Tom King stuff.
Yeah.
Tom King, I feel like we on this podcast, I just want to say it because I feel like on this podcast we like fucking tug his dick all the time and we say nothing bad about him ever. I just want to say that I just want to remind everybody that I did mention we absolutely love Tom King, but he has some very specific writing style and that is not for everyone. And when it comes into long form, especially or obviously because all he's writing right now, material that maybe some of his writing elements are not as appreciated because they go a little bit sideways in our opinion. I, for example, think that there's some shit that he could do better, but in general, love him. So sorry if Charlie wants to add.
I would say that other than Heroes in Crisis, which I have some huge issues with, I don't think I have ever been unhappy with like his other work. It's just Heroes in Crisis especially, I really had big issues with, and I wouldn't necessarily suggest that one to people, but like Vision, Mr. Miracle, Batman, Omega Men, like all that stuff I liked.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm Omega Men, but yeah, I totally agree with that. And we totally forgot to talk about Heroes in Crisis, but yeah, I'm with you 100%.
All right, Tom Silla asks, who won the decade and basically last decade between Marvel and DC for comics and movies? Which I think is kind of an easy answer, isn't it? For movies, it's definitely Marvel. And for comic books, I think it's actually DC. I mean, all the big books.
Yeah, in the last decade, I would say it's DC.
Yeah.
Not necessarily every year.
No, not every year, but I think if you count as a whole decade, I think that nod goes to DC.
Totally agree, 100%. Not every year, but the decade as a whole, there were some dark years for Marvel while they were figuring their shit out, and I think that they've done a lot right to get this shit together. But there were some fucking dark years where it was like, oh man, cringeworthy.
Yeah. Evan says, just do a 2 hour of a drunken, incoherent shouting, which we've done with the end game already, and I think that was 3 hours, so we're good there. And then we got one last thing from Twitter, I believe. 1 second. I just have to switch over real fast, and it's our good friend Tyler Willits. He's actually asking for the 0.5 episode, which instead of doing a 0.5, we're just going to give you an over 2 hour podcast. So we're going to just go roll this in. What is Ryan's most incorrect opinion of 2019?
Oh, dude. I mean, it's Joker. I want to find.
Is it Joker or is it the? Well, he was correct on Team 2019 on Doomsday Clock release date.
Oh, I don't remember what he said about that, but yeah, I cannot get over. I can't even hear, Toby, the words that are coming out of your mouth because all I can hear in my ears is the picture of his tweet in my eyes that was something along the lines of "There's a new best." Charlie, what is it exactly? If there's a new best superhero, if Joker is a superhero movie, there's a new best superhero movie in the world.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah, I'll go with that. And
how Ryan's always saying like,
I'm gonna go with the Justice League Snyder Cut thing. Because how fast he turned tables on that one. Yeah. He was so against it.
I was expecting Charlie to have Higgins' Joker tweet at his fingertips.
Nope.
Look, at some point in time in 2019, Higgins saw the Joker movie, and he said something along the lines of, like, if the Joker is considered like a superhero, there's a new best superhero movie that's ever been made.
Oh, yeah, we've already talked about Ryan's need to tug on DC's dick over every movie that comes out. So
yeah, we absolutely have. And he is the absolute fucking worst about that, especially with DC. And it's so, his fucking, like, hobnobbing is so fucking palpable. So, yes, with regards to Higgins, I cannot shit on him enough. I, love Higgins, but with respect to his wrong opinions, he hit a new high when... This was months after Endgame came out. he was talking about how Joker was the best superhero movie of all time, which is just like, holy fuck! Like, I can't even. Like, your fucking parents are probably cringing and not even knowing like what is happening, and it's because you exist and you have that opinion and you just tweeted it out to the world, and simultaneously, meanwhile, he's trolling other people in the world about their tweets, which is a little not self-conscious, but that's a whole separate story. Anyway, yeah, so that's my Higgins rant.
Lastly, Tyler also asks, when the Dark Conspiracy records, what is everyone drinking? Now, today, this is actually a real comics conspiracy episode because Ryan's going to load it up on an actual Tuesday, I believe, but he could be lying to me. But if this was a After Dark Conspiracy episode, Charlie, you usually do your rum and...
No, it's a coffee and Fireball.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Coffee and Fireball.
Oh, look at you.
Bryce?
Is it decaf coffee, Charlie, or are you drinking fully caffeinated coffee at 10 p.m.?
Oh, I drink fully caffeinated coffee from the moment I'm awake to the moment I go to sleep.
You should see him at Comic-Con. 1 a.m. at, what's it called? The pizza place? Or no, what was it?
The Spaghetti Factory.
Spaghetti Factory. I want this food and coffee, please. They were like, excuse me? Yes, coffee. Please, now.
Coffee. And can I get an extra shot of Fireball in that coffee? Sir, it doesn't come with Fireball. No, I'm very boring in how exciting I am. I'm IPA a day. When the kids are asleep and I no longer have to be on a podcast, I'll do some makers on the rocks. Okay. I don't do that before I have to record because I can get even more incoherent than I already am. But the IPA is able to help me be half incoherent, but still enjoy.
Well, I'm a Stella guy or Jameson guy, so I'm pretty simple.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're grazing on the 2.5 hour mark, so we've done the Bryce job of doing Bryce long podcasts. So, yeah, I think next week we're going to be back to normal Ryan podcasts. Thanks for listening and joining us, and we'll see you in the new year. Yay!
Happy New Year!